We're going to stay in Europe now. I've got Craig Edwards with the golf. It's the Golf Open de France at Golf de National, home of the Ryder Cup last time out. Victorious Europeans. Tough course this, even tougher when the weather conditions are bad. Craig, what's the weather going to be like?
Pretty poor, Flash. We're looking at the only really calm day is going to be Sunday, so I think the players are going to have to keep themselves just out of trouble best they can and hope they've got a chance on Sunday. It looks like they're going to have a severe test this week in Paris.
Good, we like that. I prefer them to have a good test. I tell you what I don't like. The Houston Open last week, the wind blows. I thought the golf was an absolute nonsense from those players. Anyone who hit the front, they then, there wasn't a winner amongst them for me. And I nearly said to you last week, whenever the wind blows in the Houston Open, back in the day, my man was Chad Campbell. So when I'm watching and Chad starts coming up with a run, I'm like, no, please. Do not do this to me, because he was my go-to man when the wind blew. I thought it was a very poor tournament, to be fair. I saw, I had a couple of small wagers on Patrick Rogers. 5 under through the first 2 rounds. Opens up, double bogey, par, bogey, birdie on round 3 on Saturday. And that's the end of that.
Yeah, it was a weird week. I mean, I think they had some bad weather in round 2 in Houston, and I think that affected our man, Austin Cook. He had the worst of the draw second day, but he that's just an excuse, really. At the end of the day, he'd got off to an 8 under start. So, like you say, Flash, it was a bit of madness, and in a way, it was kind of. I was expecting someone like Chad Campbell to come and win, someone that's experienced, keeping the ball low. And I had similar thoughts, to be honest. He's a guy that I used to follow a lot, and he's been so out of form, but he does have a streak of class. Yeah. And I thought the same thing when I saw him coming onto the leaderboard. Yeah, I mean, I love that. I love it when you don't pick a golfer and you used to have him, and it's almost like shank, miss, duff.
And it's just as much value as be a great shot, because I prefer, it's easier to cheer them on to have bad shots. The one thing I'm going to take out of it, I don't really like hassling and cussing on golfers. Peter Malnati, for me, he's too dramatic. Hit the front on about 7 different occasions over the 4 days. And for me, the job's just too big for him. He's just too fidgety.
Yeah, it looks a bit too much for him. I mean, I think he won a tour that 2 or 3 seasons ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
Tournaments.
2017.
And he won that 500 to 1. And to be fair, he's run like a 500 to 1 shot most of the time since. And then, like you say, last week he had every opportunity, and he looked like he's just a boy playing with men. Really, he didn't. Like you say, he was all over the place. He just needed to focus, really. Just keep it simple in that weather, fairways and greens, and just like the others, just grind away.
Yeah, I mean, he was always on the move, putting. He was always an excuse. He's so amateur. It just frustrated me, because I look back and his only win, I think he backed into that win because I think there was maybe 2 shots between about 14 players, and he came out with a 1-shot lead. So I'm always worried about them players that don't actually just go and go clear and pick up the winner's check. Okay, let's start with Le Golf National. Talk to me a little bit about this course, Craig.
Well, when you first set your eyes on it, it reminds you a little bit some of the holes of Sawgrass. It's set very much on the TPC designs, and particularly Sawgrass. But when you look into it, the course is set in a real exposed location. And when you look over the results of the years gone by, link specialists have prospered. There's been certain other correlations as well. But I like the links one, and you've got Graham McDowell won it back-to-back years, and you had, before that, you had Nick Faldo and Seve won it a lot of the times, and they are links exponents. And pretty much most of my lads I'm going to put up this week are players that play well in links conditions. I mean, last year at the Ryder Cup, basically, the Americans were totally lost on the course. They just could not cope with keeping the ball on the fairway, on the greens, and Molinari and Fleetwood just made mincemeat out of them.
Yeah, and I'll stop you there because that's exactly what I say about this golf course. I wrote driving accuracy, fairways and greens. Don't complicate it. Look at the type of players that win round here. Tommy Fleetwood drives it on a piece of frozen rope. Alex Noren. I know, I'm surprised you haven't gone for him, but I think you haven't gone for him because he's only at 12 to 1 and it's going to be a tough weekend, but he is the class in the field. And with the wind, there's like a subtlety in elevation from tee to fairways, and they've got to make sure that they hit this ball right. Let's start off with your first one. Good player, this lad, Adrian Ortegi at 81.
Yeah, been totally out of form since he finished second down under in the start of the year. He has won twice on the PGA Tour, and finishing second at the start of the year seemed in keeping with how he'd been playing. And he's just fallen off side of the cliff for the rest of the season. Just noticed last week his stats for the opening 2 rounds in Italy were really good. And you know yourself, Flash, it's just like something sparks. He didn't finish off the weekend very well, but I do think when you look at his 2 performances here, he fits the course perfectly. And I just thought at 80 to 1, he gave us a shred of value, and he'll be fresh because he's been missing cuts, so many cuts that in a way it can be an advantage this time of year if you find your stride and can find something click in your game. And it did look like something that clicked in his game last week.
Yeah, and a lot of people think we're coming to the end of the season, but for players like this, it could almost be the start of the season because they do that winter swing that ends up down under, exactly where you said he finished second earlier on in the year. Let's go on. Another good player, another good driver of the golf ball. Matthew Southgate at 40 to 1.
Yeah, I mean, this guy is links all over. Two or three top 20s in the British Open. The other week he was quite unlucky not to win the Dunhill Links. He was outstayed down the on the last day by Victor Perez from France itself. He's been playing really consistently, and when he has a good week, I notice that he stays in the van. Actually, now the weather forecast is so bad, if this lad can get in the van, he should have quite an advantage over several of the players this week. So there's nothing bad to say about him. He's had 2 top 10s here, and he's been in good form pretty much all summer. I think he's had 6 top 10s. So I think the only downside for Matthew is he's still to win on the European Tour, and but he's getting overdue. And some of his defeats, he hasn't lost a lot in defeat. I remember Rory McIlroy won the Irish Open from under his nose the other year with a couple of like outrageous shots. So yeah, I like him this week, and I like him more with the bad weather.
Yeah, I think 40 to 1. I think that's great value. Normally you're going to get around a quarter or a fifth of the odds. So that's 8 to 1 a place. Normally around the top 8. You know that he's got proper credentials for this type of golf course and the weather as well. American Julian Suri at 46. There's a surprise one for me, this one.
Yeah, it's an absolute similar pick, and the correlation that I picked Ortega from. He's been out of form since the Indian Open and the Trophy Hassan. Totally. I think he blew up at the Indian Open. Well, it was a quirky course, and he had a really bad day when it looked the winner. And then the week after, he placed again in Morocco. I know, he's just the summer he's gone missing. And then last week, out of nowhere, bang, he looks in form again. And he was second here last year to Alex Noren. He didn't really get close to beating Noren, but it was a solid tournament, and there's every reason to believe that in a way we'll be getting like 11 to 1 for him to be placed, where you're only getting that about Alex Noren to win. So I'm happier taking it, from the value perspective. Although I do know, like you said, that Noren is the obvious favourite this week.
Oh yeah. Without a shadow of doubt. I mean, everything that you would want in a golfer patience, boredom even. Watching him, you'd fall asleep. But he will be there on Sunday, no doubt about that. And if you could get betting without Noren, then I think that's probably a good market to have a look at as well. Don't like this lad you're going to mention in a minute. Marcus Kinnold, when he won, he killed me.
Yeah, well, he looks like he's a lad that's just going to play well on links. He won the Lytham Trophy as an amateur.
Yeah.
Which is quite a good test and a good test of pedigree. And then he won the British Masters this year at Hillside Links, which is known to be, amongst the professionals, they talk about it like it's the best links in England and what have you. So that's great credentials. And he's been consistent through the summer without hitting the heights. I noticed he had a really good US Open top 20 finish again, Pebble Beach, on the coast. Last year here, he blew up. He had it won, and he shot 76 on the final day. And I mean, Noren did what he's good at, winning tournaments. And but this year he should be better equipped. He's won a tournament already, and he played well in Italy last week. He's a perfect form pick, really. We've got no worries with the weather with him because he's a link specialist. So I like having him on side this week. Okay,
this next lad, I remember talking about him and no one had even heard of him. And I said, watch out for this kid. He is an absolute superstar in Asia, India, played in the big one down in Mexico, blew up. Since I've said how well and how good he is, he's won nothing. Subhankar Sharma at 61. I remember him shooting a 62 to go and win the Indian Open. I think it might have been last year, but he's gone off the face of the earth.
Yeah, it's amazing. He's still only 23. And like you say, Flash, he came with a bang at 20. Now, I'm a great believer that professional sportsmen that have an outstanding rookie year have a period of going backwards. And it's almost like their expectations are all out of realism. There's no perspective on them. He will have been expecting to be able to win the Open in the second year. So every time he has a poor performance, it's kind of a mental breakdown that they have. Lots of snooker players examples and lots of golfers. Now, I noticed a few weeks ago his stats started to pick up in the Corn Ferry finals over in America, and then of course last week, I think he was 6th in Italy. Played well here on debut. I mean, this is a quirky course, so there's no way on earth that anyone can overpower it, and he's not a lad to overpower a course any case. The only worry with him, I think, this week is the bad weather forecast. That may be a worry with him. He may not be as robust as some of the other players if it gets too bad. But I do think he's... the thing I like about him, I think if he can get in contention on Sunday, I think he can win for us.
Oh, he's not scared of winning. That's been half his problem for me, is that when obviously I caddied, and I'd say, listen, 10, 12 foot, left of the pin, we're happy. If we roll a putt in, no problem. We walk away no less than pars. He goes flag hunting when the flag's like four yards off the right, where it's dead if you miss it right. For me, he's been too aggressive, and I think his schedule has been too haphazard. He's in India, then he goes to America, then he goes to South America, then he plays in Africa. He's tried to do it all too quickly. And it's almost as if the organisers have tried to milk him, as they said he could be, like, obviously not Tiger Woods, but obviously at 19 and 20 when he was winning, they were throwing him into, he was getting invites, and I think it burnt him out, to be honest. And I think they've got to take a good look at his schedule and just say, look, he's going to concentrate now, maybe move him to America, just stay there. But then obviously the Indians want part of him, they want him to play on that swing. I think they've just got to manage him a little bit better, but also stop him being too aggressive.
Totally, and you see it all the time. And of course, in golf, there's all the unwritten thing that they don't talk about, which is obviously appearance fees, and that may have factored it with his management and people. So he will have burnt out with the travel, and I mean, putting your clubs on a plane and losing a day and a half through travel is not ideal. Then you've got the fatigue, and if you don't catch up with you one week, it's going to catch up with you the next. So I'm with you, Flash. I'd like to see him commit to one of the tours next year and do what he's good at, really.
Okay, well, I'm obviously going to give my two penneth, even though last week Keegan Bradley was an absolute disgrace. So he'll be on the naughty step and won't be seen again. So expect him to win. Oh, by the way, what about our man Burn reversing into a win in Italy? We've been shouting about him all year. He goes and wins, he wins. We don't do an Italian Open and he wins again.
I tell you, I was working on my notes for this week. I always start working on kind of the weekend before, and I kind of go through all the players in my notes. And of course, he's won in France before, and I looked in the entry list and he's not there. I thought, oh my God. Of course, he's gone up to the next level now. And this has kind of been a bit downgraded this year with the change of schedule. So, but I think if he'd have come here this week and you could have got 10 or 12 to 1 about him, I think you'd have been tempted to take it, because not many players are playing better than him, to be truthful, at the moment.
No, he's a little bit like the Kevin Na category with a few years in hand. He's actually got himself over the line. He picked up an injury. All of a sudden, he's overtaken the other lads like Peters, the boys that they thought were going to come through, Lindegaard. But he is your man now. He is your man, and he will be contending in majors next year. I still think that he's a little bit too aggressive, but the way that he's doing it, if it comes off, he wins. I'm going for Noren, and I'm having Matthew Southgate all over. I'm having Matthew Southgate in this tournament in these conditions.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like you say, I'm 100% behind you on both of them. I just didn't go for Noren because of the price, and I preferred to pay him a few each way selections. But Noren is the class player. He played so well in the Dunhill Links 2 weeks ago, and like the players I've picked this week, they've been out of form, so they've got every reason to be hungry at this time of year. And like you said, Flash, they've got to get something going now.
Yeah, they certainly have. Tour School just round the corner. Caddied in Tour School. Should see them. They're like that on the first tee.
I can imagine.
Honestly, some of them are finished before the 9th. And I look at them and think, what were you even doing here in the first place? Because 80% of this game is mental and 20% is physical. So, listen, I'm really looking forward to this competition. Great layout. Let's hope the wind blows an absolute hoolie and Matthew Southgate gets the job done at 40 to 1. Cheers, Craig.